Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Okay, great. Welcome to our town hall meeting. I'm Jeff Brogan. I'm the Vice President and General Manager at WCPO 9 on Your Side, the local ABC affiliate.
And my name is Ellen Weiss. I am the Bureau Chief for the Scripps Washington Bureau, and we're part of the Scripps family. As you know, Scripps is a Cincinnati-based media company. It's been around since 1878. I just a quick check, because I think I know, but how many vets do we have in the audience? Could you just raise your hand? Wow. Well, first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for joining us tonight. We really, really appreciate it. It's great to see you all.
It really means a lot to us, and we knew we would have a nice turnout, but this really exceeded expectations. A couple of things we wanted to mention. You can see the cameras around the room. They're all around us. Just so you know, this is being live streamed on WCPO.com, and it will be available on our website at a later date. There is another camera roaming around. That's one of our reporters, Evan Millward. It'll be on tonight at 11 o'clock, and then obviously posted the story on WCPO.com. You can find it there. So if you have, we're very active on social media as well. So if you have any type of thing you want to tweet out or put on Facebook, the hashtag is CincyVA. Hashtag CincyVA. One other last note, we want to hear from you, and I know you guys have a lot of questions. If you have a question, just raise your hand, and we have 3 to 4 different people that will take these microphones and bring them to you.
Great. I also wanted to let you know, sort of in the course of our reporting about the VA, we ran into a lot of groups that offer services or resources for veterans, and so we invited them to be here tonight. I think you've met some of them in the hall. Thank you for coming. And I just want to point them out. I believe the VA is also going to have someone here coming as well in the back. So there may be some questions that you have are specific to your needs, and we're just going to ask you to take advantage of those resources.
And we don't want the night to go by without thanking this VFW post, which is 4369, and in particular, Commander Ralph Walters. For their
All right, thank you. And just one final word. I can tell just by the conversations I've had with some of you already that there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of emotion around the issue of veterans care. It's certainly something that we've encountered, and I know the VA encounters it every day. And we just ask that you channel that emotion into conversation, into engagement, but we really are looking for a respectful conversation, and we know you know that as well, but I just want to make that point. So with that?
Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started.
Thank you again.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Monk, and I'm a business reporter at WCPO.
My name is Mark Greenblatt. I'm a national investigative correspondent for the Scripps Company. I'm based out of Washington, D.C.
Mark and I have been looking into the Cincinnati VA for the last 6 months, specifically looking into quality of care and access to care issues at this facility. And we found some issues that I think are common to VAs around the country, but we also found some problems that I think are unique to Cincinnati.
So talking about uniqueness, I think that one of the things that you and I both agree on, Dan, is that in the course of reporting out this story, it wasn't 1 or 2 people from the inside that sort of came forward with a problem, but we actually ended up talking to about 34 insiders who work inside the Cincinnati VA in all sorts of positions, ranging from nurses to, I think we talked to 18 physicians, department heads. 3 of them who are courageous spoke out publicly. They're sitting here to my left and to your right. And, you know, just to give you a quick highlight of some of the things that we heard from this large group that are only represented by the folks you see here tonight. You know, we heard about allegations, very serious allegations of conflicts of interest involving senior leadership at the Cincinnati VA, and even going on up to the VA's regional network level. We heard about entire departments allegedly being sort of eviscerated, ranging from orthopedics to neurosurgery, leaving veterans who need care sort of forced to find it outside the system and not within the walls of the VA. We heard about dirty surgical instruments and allegations that these were happening too often and coming out too often in operations that potentially could have put veterans' health at risk. Really serious stuff, Dan. And so those are some of the things that we've heard about and that we reported on.
And since we reported on these incidents, the VA initiated 2 investigations and forced 2 high-ranking officials out of their positions. One of them, Jack Hetrick, retired as network director, and we are grateful that his replacement is here to answer questions tonight. And Dr. Barbara Temmick was removed as chief of staff. Her hospital privileges revoked, and she ended up relinquishing her DEA license to prescribe controlled substances.
So serious action on the part of the VA, removing 2 officials from power. But I think one of the reasons why we're here tonight and why so many of you are out tonight is that you have a lot more questions about, well, what is the path forward? And that's what we're going to try to get to tonight. We're going to try to have a conversation about that. And one place to begin is with the panelists here. And so what I think we'd like to do is to just sort of open up very briefly, framing, we just heard about some of the problems that have been talked about in the media, that we've put out, that some of you have helped get the word out about. But tell me, if you don't mind, briefly and succinctly, and all of you please, where do you think things stand today, a couple of months after the reports came out? And maybe to begin, introducing Dr. Richard Freiberg, who's directly here to my left and to your right. Dr. Freiberg is the former chief of orthopedics at the Cincinnati VA Medical Center, and just a longtime orthopedic surgeon in this community. Dr. Freiberg, what's your take on how things are today?
Well, I would say that our troubles started 3 years ago, and they got progressively worse until the Scripps people came and made it clear we had major problems. The real open investigation has only been, the public has been aware of and the hospital has been aware of for about 2 months. I would say there has been negligible change of any sort. Speaking for orthopedics, everyone in my service left except me by October, as they were all unhappy the way the hospital was being run and felt that they could not provide their services properly. 2 new orthopedic surgeons have been brought onto staff. They're both spine surgeons. This is not entirely useful for a service whose main issue is doing total joints on old men's knees.
Next up is Mike Brooks, 24-year veteran of the Navy from Norwood, Ohio, who joined the Cincinnati VA in 2008. Mike is a certified registered nurse anesthetist and a union steward at the Cincinnati VA. And Mike, same question to you. How have things changed in the last 2 months?
We've seen lots of new faces there asking lots of questions. So there have been several different investigation groups coming through. Unfortunately, there just appears to be in the investigation phase right now. I haven't seen any true changes in my workspace. Of course, I work in the operating room, so I'm not down in the front office in the front hallway. So I haven't seen a lot of change that's happened. There's a lot of people who are promising change, but I haven't seen it happen yet.
Next up, Susan Ware. So Susan is a longtime worker inside of the Cincinnati VA. I think I have this right. Is it 16 years that you've been there? Is that right?
Yes, 16 working on 17.
16 working on 17, working primarily as a nurse practitioner, and most of those years spent inside of neurosurgery, which is a department we've heard a lot about recently.
Yeah, 16 years in neurosurgery. I was hired initially through a training program that was offered through the VA, and I was hired straight out of my graduation into neurosurgery and worked there until Dr. Temmick asked the neurosurgeon to quit so she could send patients into choice care.
And how are things today, do you think, at the Cincinnati VA?
I still get messages constantly with neurosurgery questions, and are asked to do things that I don't have the ability to do sometimes by other providers because I don't have a neurosurgeon to collaborate with. I've been asked by the department, the director, what could be done to repair neurosurgery. My first response was, well, you have to have a neurosurgeon. The neurosurgeon has always been willing to talk to the administration about trying to work something out, but as of Monday, no one has ever spoken with him. Neurosurgery is a very complex service. Most of the nurse practitioners that were with neurosurgery have now disbanded. So to rebuild the program as to what it was isn't even possible. So it would have to look new and different, and that would require probably a collaborative effort with the university hospital. So that would require a lot of negotiations.
And we'll get into a lot of that tonight.
And we have the guy here who could do those negotiations. Robert McDivitt is the acting regional director for 11 VA hospitals in Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan, previously the director of the VA Medical Center in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And Mr. McDivitt, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I guess my question to you is the same. What have you seen change since you've taken over leadership of this facility?
Sure. Again, thank WCPO, Dan, Mark, for inviting us to be here. I also want to thank Dr. Freiberg and Susan and for being here and giving us an idea of what's going on. I've been here about a month, so one of the things that is new in the whole equation is I'm here. As you said, I'm normally the director of the VA Medical Center in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I am an Army veteran myself. I have worked for VA for 36 years at 6 medical centers, and this is my 4th time at sort of the corporate level. As you said, Vision 10 manages the VAs in Ohio, Indiana, and the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. During that time, I visited the Cincinnati VA 3 times. I had a chance to meet with Mike and Susan on the first day I was on the job and to talk with them and a number of their colleagues. We had a team of employees from Cincinnati who came and visited me at our Blue Ash office a week later. I've had a chance to talk to Dr. Freiberg on the phone. I had not met him until this evening and have really been very involved in issues associated with the Cincinnati VA. As you said, there have been a number of reviews that have gone on, and I think that's a strength of the VA system, that we are an open, transparent system. We have an inspector general, an office of the medical inspector, and others that will fairly and equitably look into any allegation. As you indicated, there have been changes at the Cincinnati VA. The acting chief of staff is in a different role. There are ongoing investigations involving that individual. She is not in a clinical care role at the present time. Dr. Ralph Panos, who I think has that sort of strong university connection that Susan talked about, is acting chief of staff and providing some clinical leadership to the facility as we move through this. Meanwhile, every single day, veterans are receiving primary care, specialty care, inpatient care, and long-term care in the Cincinnati VA. And to the tune of over 42,000 veterans receiving care every year. The issues that have brought up are all being reviewed. We're here tonight really to listen and to learn from the veterans in the room, from the employees in the room, and I can tell you we have note takers, we have staff from the Cincinnati VA here. If anyone has an individual issue, complaint, concern, compliment, what have you, please see our staff here because we are veterans serving veterans, and we are here for you.
And maybe that's a good place to sort of pick up from here right now. We talked about how there are some changes that have happened inside of the Cincinnati VA. Your physical presence here is an indication of one of them. Jack Hetrick, your predecessor, was told he was going to be removed from his position, elected to retire. You've been moved into that position, and you're brand new at it as the new kid on the block. But one of the things that has percolated up, and I've heard questions asked by some folks on the panel and some other folks in the room tonight, is the former acting chief of staff, who was in an acting role for 2.5 years or so, does remain at the Cincinnati VA. We understand working in the basement, but still collecting more than $300,000 a year for her salary. And I guess the question to you, sir, would be, what is the update on Dr. Tomek? Why is that happening? When the VA has put out in a public press release that it substantiated wrongdoing charges against her related to some prescriptions that she was making for the wife of your predecessor.
The reason behind that, one, Dr. Tomek as an employee has a right to due process as a federal employee, and there are ongoing investigations being conducted by independent parts of the VA, not the Veterans Health Administration, but the Inspector General and others. And until those investigations are completed and we have the complete report, there won't be final action taken on that.
Do you have any update on those investigations?
All of you veterans know what an IG is. An IG is an independent investigative arm. Every federal agency has it. I have no direct influence over the IG. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs does not have influence over the IG, and that's their job, is to come and fairly look at issues in the VA or whatever federal agency they're in and provide us reports where action can be taken from the report.
We're going to get to questions from the audience very shortly, but one of the things that I've been fascinated by as we reported this story is the willingness of whistleblowers to come forward and talk publicly at some personal and professional risk, and their motivations for doing so I found to be extremely interesting. So what I'd like to do is ask the three of you, why did you come forward?
Well, engraved on the hospital wall outside is, "You have served us, let us serve you." And I've been here at the Veterans Hospital since I retired in private practice 20 years ago, and I consider that my role, to serve veterans whose service I greatly appreciate. When I saw that this service was not being delivered in an effective way, and when I saw my own service, all the people leave because they were unhappy, felt they were working in a toxic environment, and I was the last one, I felt like I should speak up. As we ordinarily would have 6,000 or 8,000 clinic visits and 400 or 500 surgeries per year, and we had nobody to do any of this to an effective degree. And I watched many of our sick patients being referred out into the community where we had no control over the care they got, and it did not in any way live up to the kind of care we were giving before 3 years ago, which was excellent.
And it's interesting to note that at first, when you and I talked, you were not eager to publicly talk about all of this, but you did eventually decide that this was too important not to speak about. Moving on to Mike Brooks, why did you come forward?
Well, I turned 18 in boot camp, and I was served in the Navy, served with the Marine Corps, and then served with the Navy for 24 years. And all veterans know that you have your core values, and the core value of the Navy is honor, courage, and commitment. And I'm certainly committed to taking care of, always have been, taking care of the Marines and the sailors that I've been around. And I retired from the Navy and took this job, came back to my hometown, and I was watching things happen that were just not within keeping with the standards of health care that as I knew them. And I knew that these patients that I take care of, they deserve the highest and the best health care. They're the most deserving of health care in the nation, and I wanted the very best for them, and I was going to fight for it no matter what it took. Every night when I brush my teeth to get in bed and I look in the mirror, did I do the best for my patients today? And it was really wearing on me. I didn't have any gray hair when this started. No. No. Anyway. And unfortunately, my wife didn't have many gray hair when I started this, complaining to her either. But I used my chain of command, talked to my supervisor, talked to her supervisor, talked to their supervisors, and there seemed to be a quiet, don't rock the boat kind of mentality, but that wasn't going to fix the situation. So I made a phone call to my congressman, and I said, there's an issue here that we have to take care of. And Congressman Winstrip invited us to come and talk. And then once I spoke to him and I came back and told my chain of command that I went to the congressman, they were in a panic. They were absolutely in a panic. But then after a few days, they came back and said, do you think he would talk to me? I said, of course he'll talk to you. You live in this area. You're one of his constituents. And the next meeting we had, I think there were 13 people that went to talk to him. And eventually there were 34 people that went to talk to him to try to get some change, because the chain of command stopped at a certain level. We weren't getting the change we needed, but we weren't going to stop until we made the change to get the care that you people deserve.
Susan, why'd you come forward?
I chose to work at the VA because my dad was a Navy WW2 vet who had really bad PTSD. So it was my way to pay it back. For months, my phone rang with scared, angry veterans, as well as scared, angry providers. And it broke my heart, and I decided, well, if I'm retaliated against, I can always get another job, but I can't get another conscience.
And it comes here now speaking out on behalf of the VA is of course Mr. McDivitt here, and you're here. You don't have to be here, but you chose to come, and it should be noted how rare this really is, because you have a group of investigative reporters and people who are sitting here with serious complaints and serious charges that they brought out publicly, and this is really a rare event because you're one of the most senior, highest-ranking officials in the VA in the nation, and you've chosen to be here tonight, and that should be noted. But why did you come?
Well, we're here to listen to the voice of veterans, and I hope we have the opportunity to do that, and to listen to the voices of employees. And as I said, I've met with Dr. Freiberg and Mike and Susan on a couple of occasions already in my short time here. We encourage our employees, and we being the VA system and Vision 10, encourage our employees to come forward, because unless people speak up, you don't know what's going on. I'm sitting in an office building out here in Blue Ash trying to manage 11 healthcare facilities that care for over 500,000 veterans in this part of the country. And we need to hear from veterans, and we need to hear from employees, and we need to work together to move forward. John Gennaro, the director in Cincinnati, and I have gone around and talked frequently about just culture, which is a concept of patient safety. And just culture means you tell what's going on, and if you need to pull the end-on cord and stop what you're doing to fix something, you do that. And we want to empower our employees to make those decisions and to do the kinds of things that you've heard tonight. So again, I am here to listen, I am here to learn, and to help us to move forward.
And before Dan moves us forward here in tonight's program, I just want to remind everyone this is streaming live. We're going to be taking questions from the audience, but we're also hoping to be able to take questions from some folks sitting at their computer or on their web phones, on their iPhones or Android devices at home. If you want to talk to us, if you have a question for us, if you have a question for any of the panelists, you can do so online on Twitter. Just go ahead and tweet us at #CincyVA. So that's CINCYVA, and hopefully we'll get some of those questions throughout the program. Dan.
So as we circulate the mics here, I think there's a question over here. In the meantime, I'm curious about one thing. You mentioned John Gennaro just a moment ago, and Dr. Panos, the new Chief of Staff. Neither are here tonight, and I don't See any other? Oh, okay, good. All right. I wanted to get an update from you on vacancy rates in the hospital. How many positions are unfilled? How many people work there today?
Yeah, I don't know that off the top of my head, to be honest. There are just over 2,000 employees in the healthcare system. I believe there were up about 40 FTE from full-time equivalent employees from the beginning of the year, but we can check on the vacancy rates and get back with you.
Do you perceive vacancy to be a problem in that hospital?
I haven't looked that closely, to be honest. I think recruiting and retaining good healthcare staff is a challenge across the nation. Orthopedic surgeons, neurosurgeons, and so on are a very special commodity. And the fact that we have vacancies in those areas in Cincinnati means we need to do the kinds of things that we've talked about here in terms of working with our community partners, working with our university partners. Dr. Freiberg and I had a chance to talk on the phone about potential strategies to recruit orthopedic surgeons and to build programs up that have changed in the last several years. So, we are out recruiting. I don't have the exact numbers for you, Dan, but the Cincinnati VA has actually grown in terms of its full-time equivalent employees this year.
Lots of more questions about staffing, I'm sure will come up throughout the evening, but let's move this now. We want this to be an open conversation between you and anybody here on the panel. Before we move, briefly, some short guidelines. What we're hoping for here, we know there's a lot of individual stories to tell out in the audience. We're hoping, to the extent that you can, to value the time of these panelists and to ask questions of the panelists rather than to tell your individual stories as much as you possibly can. So with that said, is there an opening question from the audience for any panel member? We have a gentleman over here with the mic. And if you wouldn't mind just telling us who you are and
My name is Willie James Bush Jr. For the person in charge, how much tenure do you have in your position at this time?
Sure. I have been here as the acting vision director since the end of February, so just a little over a month. As I said, I've worked for VA for 36 years at 6 medical centers. I've been a director of 2 VA medical centers, and this is my 4th time working at the vision level.
Okay, I have 42 years. And in my 42 years, I learned one thing. WCPO.com on your side is a joke. Because when I came here and asked to file a complaint, and I was trying to use WCPO, it wouldn't even take my complaint. So this is a joke. Next thing, I have filed so many lawsuits. I have had a stroke, a heart attack, and all of a sudden I called the White House one day and I said, delay this message to President Obama. If he don't put my claims up, I'm going to write the Queen of England. Next thing you know, everything went downhill, everything got answered. But this lady called me from Washington, D.C., and she said that she's in charge of my claim. She said that she's going to pay me at the end of this month. Now, me being in the system for 42 years, they lie.
and I don't mean to move you along, sir, because I do know that this is, we want to hear all voices, but do you have a question?
They lie.
But do you have a question, sir, for any of us?
Yes. Any of y'all gonna do your job? Okay, I was trying to get a knee replacement on the outside, and they say is the workers' comp. I'm like, yes. No one would touch my knee, replace my right knee, because it happened in the military. No one would touch me. And so, I have a lot of questions. First question is WCPO. That's a joke. Next question is, you a joke. Because I don't believe nothing y'all say. Until y'all show me in writing and stand behind y'all words, we're going to always have issues. Always.
Well, we are looking into,
Looking into it, don't get nothing done.
we've written several stories, and we're working on
It's accomplished.
stories as we speak.
Y'all joke.
Okay,
Look at yourself again.
all right.
We have a question. We'll get the microphone up here soon. A question from the gentleman in the back. Oops. Just a short delay. Try that again. We're going to switch out the microphones here. Oh, I think I heard something,
sir.
sir.
Here you go. Sorry about that.
World War II veteran.
All right, now can everybody hear?
All right.
Okay, I've been a VA member over 23 years, possibly 25. I'm not sure. I can't keep that good of a record. But anyway, even when I went to the VA, I asked them how long I'd been a member, and they couldn't tell me. But anyway, I came here tonight because I've got so many experiences with the VA. And the one that I would like to address to you right now, I guess, is where do you go to express your experiences and dislikes about the VA? That's what I would like to know.
Well, if there is a challenge, or if there's a veteran who wants to voice a frustration, Mr. McDivitt, perhaps that's a question for you, sir.
First of all, sir, thank you for your service in World War II. That's why we're here. We're here to listen
Thank you for
to you.
thanking me.
If you have an individual issue, complaint, or concern, Lauren from the Cincinnati VA is in the back, and if she can't answer your question, we'll make sure that somebody follows up. For all of you, I will be staying after the meeting. If you have anything you want to share with me, Suzanne Brungs from our office is with me, and we will take down your information and follow up appropriately.
My concern is
but
not with
again,
you guys,
we're here to
because
listen to you.
I know that you have a good reputation and everything else, but it's with the administration. And that's the whole thing that's a big problem, I think. But anyway, if I can talk to somebody about the problems I've had, I don't want to take up a lot of time with you people, because I don't think you're in the right area. The administration people are the ones I want to talk to. But thank you very much for...
Thank you, sir. We have lots of other hands coming up, some in the front rows, and one right over here, sir.
My name is Rick Olson.
If you don't mind standing up.
I can't.
No?
I'm in a
He's good.
wheelchair.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
I have a bit.
My complaint really isn't about my care. It's about gross neglect of care of other veterans. And what that is for several years I was the hospital liaison officer at Cincinnati VA, and since Fred Whitmire passed away, I've been the acting service officer. Okay, well, on the 15th of last year, I was fired from volunteering because I kept complaining and saying that the engineer was double dipping, and I kept trying to get buttons put on doors and all this type of thing, and they're charging $10,000 a button for putting a button on a door. The service officer area is not accessible, and there's one door in and no door out and no security lighting. When the lights went out in the hospital a few months ago, there was a lady that's the DAV service officer, which is in a wheelchair, and she was stuck in there with a PTSD veteran, and it was pitch black, no lighting. There's only one door in. As being the hospital liaison officer, I was supposed to go around and make things accessible, that weren't accessible. Well, they just built the 36-bed hospice and nursing home, and the only reason they put the buttons on the back door is because I made him put buttons on the door because Lisa fell down trying to get in the door, and the front of the building is still not accessible.
Okay,
You
do you
have
have
to
a-
pull the door, and those people come in on stretchers, but that's not really my complaint.
Yeah, let's
My
get to,
real
let's get to a question if we can.
My real complaint is to Sue, I'm sorry, to Sue and the director, and it's not about me, it's about ALS patients. They're being gross neglected. I mean, as the position that I was holding, I would fill out folders that had the 10 forms that they needed to fill out. And then when the families came in, I would go over the folders with them and go over each form with them and explain to them how to use it. Okay, well, then gave them my card. And if there was anything they needed at night, they could call me or get the forms taken care of. Well, they fired me because I kept complaining, saying that the engineer was double dipping. And they kept telling me how there was no problem with the engineer in Cincinnati. And I have written documentation of all the emails to and the emails from, and I was fired from a volunteer position where I was putting in 35 to 40 hours a week.
Let's get some panel interaction here. Mr. McDivitt, the complaints that are heard and rise up through the ranks, you know, you've got 3 people here who went all the way up the chain of command in the VA and then turned to the media because they were getting no answers. And I can't tell you the number of times I've heard stories like this where people say they complained, they did everything they felt they could within the organization, and there's never any change. When is that going to change?
Well, I think change is constant in any healthcare environment, including the Cincinnati VA. But it requires listening to your employees, engaging them in work processes, listening to veterans as we're doing tonight, following up. And if there are access and entrance and egress issues, we're happy to look at those. That's a part of the ongoing accreditation process for facilities. You know, it's not all about senior leadership. It's about working as a team to move forward to care for veterans. And certainly in my relatively short time here, I am committed to work with the leadership in Cincinnati and the other facilities across our vision to try to make those things happen.
Do you feel like the VA has been responsive during your month here, your first month on the?
I think there have been changes. I've had a lot of conversations with leadership and others. I've seen both issues of concern that were raised and also compliments for really good or excellent care received by veterans at the Cincinnati VA. I think the fact that there have been many reviews in the last 6 weeks, Office of Medical Inspector and Inspector General, Joint Commission, National VA sterile processing things. Those are all good signs, and those are people who are coming in and they're finding things that we're doing well and telling us to build on that, and they're also finding opportunities for us to improve.
What changes have you made in the first month?
In the first month that I've been on, in terms of the organization, I have met with a lot of employees here and tried to listen to them and to help us move forward. I want Mike and Susan and Dr. Freiberg to know that their voices are important, and I think that's a starting point, because if you don't have fully engaged employees, if you don't have employees that are willing to stand up and say, this is working, this isn't working, you can't change. And I have tried to put that message out consistently at every facility in Vision 10 in a relatively short period of time.
But have you changed anything? Like, have you changed, reassigned an employee or ordered a problem to be fixed that somebody told you about, or you know, any change that you can think of that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have not reassigned any employees in Cincinnati, but I have tried to stay in nearly daily contact with the leadership team there and with frontline staff.
I understand we may have a question coming in from social media now. If we do, then if we could have that read aloud.
While she's getting that, maybe we have a question right here from the
Oh, that's great.
Sir, absolutely.
Yes, my name is Bob Mao. I'm a U.S. Army retired, and I want to know through the panel that sometimes it takes too long to get things done. A patient comes in. For instance, it took a year for my back messed up, my L4, okay? I kept telling it that sciatic nerve is running down, it's being pinched. Well, finally, they got me in. I've got 2 shots already. So I called last month to set up another appointment down there. I talked to a nurse, I presume. She asked me what my pain level was, and I said, it's an 8. She says, well, okay, then what about your shots? Do you think they're doing any good? And I, honest opinion, I said, well, I don't think they're doing that much good right now. And she said, well, and because of that, based on what you just told me, we're not going to give you another shot until you go see the doctor again. And I said, well, you know, ma'am, I've got a pain 8. And she said, well, you got to get another appointment. So I called the next day, and I was really mad at this lady, okay? I told her I was going to see my congressman, which I didn't do yet, but I have the paperwork. Anyway, they told me 25th of April. This was the first week in March. Now, you know, that pain every day, sometimes I can't get to the bathroom because it hurts so bad going down my leg. So I kept calling back, and they finally got me one tomorrow because somebody canceled. But I don't see why she had the authority to do what she did, because the doctor told me while I was in the operating room that he had to move this shot around to make sure, you know, it does its job. Well, now I have to wait. Again.
Let's get to a question.
The question is, why do I have to wait? Why is it taking so long?
For any one of you.
It's not fair. I don't think it's fair.
I'll answer that.
Yeah, I would agree, sir. And you know, access is a huge issue in the VA in terms of access to care. Dr. David Shulkin, who's the Undersecretary for Health, last week he issued what he called the Access Declaration. And the Access Declaration is focusing not so much on the kind of care you talked about, but on primary care. So if a veteran calls and needs to be seen today for whatever, that veteran can be seen by either their PAC team, by a nurse-run clinic. If it's something that can be handled through a telephone visit, which the VA uses, and we think is fairly innovative, that those things can help out. And that for specialty care, the kind of care you're talking about, that urgent and emergent issues are taken care of on that basis. And then we can schedule appointments after that. But there's a huge focus on access in the VA and in Cincinnati as well.
And speaking,
Let me respond to that, please.
Yeah.
Access to our clinic is severely limited because of the actions of our administration. Our people retired because they were in a toxic atmosphere and unhappy. Our teacher left, and we do not have enough people to serve people on time. I've actually come back to work after retiring because of the shortage on our service. No wonder you have to wait.
Thank you. So speaking of that, this is an area that we've done a lot of reporting in, shortage of staffing in certain departments. You're in orthopedics, Dr. Freiberg. You still are active there. So what has changed? We reported that the Cincinnati VA used to have total joint care specialists that were specialists in replacing a hip or a shoulder or a knee. In the 2 months that since we've reported, has there been any specialists added back onto the service? What is the status there?
I reported to the administration in 2009 that we had 3 total joint surgeons. They were 67, 67, and 77. I told them they needed to acquire total joint surgeons because this was not going to work. They were either going to die or retire. No one has been recruited over those 7 years. and we still have no one.
So that's 7 years that have gone by since you first raised a red flag. I know, Mr. McDivitt, you've only been on the job for 1 month. How much time would go by going forward for you before you would take action, or is this something that you think should have action taken?
I would say the recruitment of orthopedic surgeons, the recruitment of neurosurgeons, the other areas we've identified are high priorities. As I said, when we had the conversation with Dr. Freiberg, we talked about potential strategies. I've met on a couple of occasions with the leadership from Cincinnati and the leadership from the University of Cincinnati School of Medicine to talk about joint strategies to recruit the best and the brightest to care for veterans. My experience in Ann Arbor as the director there underscores the importance of a strong affiliation with a partner of the kind of research and education that we do, and that allows us to bring the best physicians to the VA, and that's the strategy that we've talked about moving forward with here in Cincinnati.
So let me just put you on the hot seat since we're here tonight. So if right now today there are no specialists, and if someone needs one of these joint replacements done, they have to go to a non-specialist to get it done in the hospital. And you said there are ways to solve this, maybe with a partnership. When will that partnership take place? How much time will go on? What will you commit to tonight?
Sure. I can't give you an exact time schedule because I haven't been involved in the individual discussions with university providers or others who can do that, Mark, but we will certainly look at that. As I said, it's a high priority on the list as to bringing on high-quality physicians. VA is in an environment where we need to be strong community partners. When I grew up in the VA, it was sort of the VA stood alone working with the university, but now we need to work with all the healthcare providers in the community to provide the strongest continuum of care to veterans. And those discussions are ongoing in Cincinnati.
Can I say something?
Sure, Susan.
I think a big part of the problem you're having with access with care, you need to discuss with your government officials, because the VA has been grossly underfunded for very many years. And this underfunding has caused a lot of these problems all across the country. A graduating neurosurgeon, fresh out of his program, will make $750,000 to $1 million a year. The top salary that he can make at the VA is $350,000. So how are we supposed to recruit people?
Right, exactly right. And I'm a nurse and I'm a steward for the National Nurses Union there at the hospital. Trying to hire and recruit the brightest and the best nurses is very difficult, and that the nursing salary there has been woefully lagged behind Good Sam, Christ, Mercy systems. And when you get a great candidate graduates out of nursing school, they're going to go looking to try to make the best salary they can. And so we're woefully behind. We've had turnovers of, in the past, almost 70% of one particular ward had a turnover of 70% of the nurses. As soon as we get them there, get them trained, they would take off and leave because they were wearing them down to the bone. They really love taking care of veterans, but when you're doing 12-hour shifts and then the next person doesn't show up and they have to stay for another 4 hours and their children are waiting at the bus stop, they can't continue to work that way. And it's going to be a staffing issue. It's going to be a hiring. They're going to have to come forward. Their government's going to have to come forward to help us with money and recruiting.
Looks like we have that social media question ready right now. So if we could just have that read aloud for the panel.
Yeah, we have a question from Jesse from Twitter, and he has a question for Director McDivitt. He asks, are you and your team developing a plan for change? And what is your timeline for noticeable change?
Sure. Well, I think the answer is that is yes, that there is change in the VA. As I mentioned, the huge focus on access. One of the issues that we haven't talked about today is the Choice Act, which envisioned that if we sent care outside the VA system, that it would be done in a seamless, timely manner. I think all of you who are veterans probably received a choice card, as did I, from the VA. That hasn't proven to be the case. There are legislative changes that have been proposed to improve the Choice Act that we believe will be enacted this spring or summer, and that will allow us to create stronger community partnerships and better access to care outside the VA system. I think the things that Susan and Mike talked about, their nurse salaries have been looked at the Cincinnati VA and are being looked at across the system with approval of new nurse salary rates, so we will be competitive with the community, and all those things are rolling out in the current fiscal year.
Mike Brooks, you heard just a moment ago Mr. McDivitt, who's brand new here, only been on the job for a month, but has been doing a lot of listening as a new leader, potentially perhaps to act in the very near future. But this is, in this opportunity, you're sitting here side by side in a public forum. If you had one thing that you would want to ask the network director, the acting network director, to change when he gets around to making those changes, what would that one thing be?
This is kind of a selfish thing, and I'm really happy that Mr. McDivitt's here. But the change that I would like to see is I would like to see more veterans given opportunities in the administration to people that truly understand accountability and responsibility. You're an oddity, as I understand in my reading, that there's really only like 11% of people in the VA administration are actually veterans. I may be mistaken, but there's a lot of veterans in the, at the deck plates where the rubber meets the road working at the VA, but in the administration, and I think at the Cincinnati VA, I don't think any of the administrators are veterans. But that's what I would like to see changed.
And so, just to underscore that a little bit, I think my understanding is your predecessor was not, Jack Hetrick was not a veteran. I think the last acting chief of staff, Dr. Barbara Tomek, was not a veteran. The current acting chief of staff, I understand, is not a veteran. The assistant director of the Cincinnati VA is not a veteran. The director of nursing, I understand, is not a veteran. This is a lot of non-veterans running the Cincinnati VA. You're brand new, but under your leadership, is there value in being a veteran and being a leader?
Well, from my own biased standpoint, Mark, I certainly think so. We're the Veterans Administration, and hiring veterans and having veterans in leadership positions is important. I spent part of the day today in my acting network director role not interviewing candidates for other director jobs around the country as part of a national search process, and I was pleased looking at the cadre of applicants. We're getting more and more applicants that are coming out of the Medical Services Corps in one of the branches of the military service, who have served as commanders of medical treatment facilities, who, of course, over the last 15 years have experienced multiple deployments to Bosnia, Iraq, Afghanistan, and bring that experience to leadership in VA, and that there are candidates out there like that who have had really distinguished military careers that I am just in awe of, and they're now choosing after their 20, 30 years of serving the United States as an Army officer or an Air Force or a Navy officer to want to continue to serve veterans, and to see them in the pool of candidates is good. And I think, Mike, that with those kind of candidates now choosing VA as an option for them to be a chief executive officer or an operating officer for a health system, that those numbers will change, and that will bring strength. And I can tell you, in every hiring decision that I make, veteran status is one of the factors we consider. We want to hire the best and the brightest and the most capable individuals, but certainly somebody that brings a military experience to the Veterans Administration is a great strength.
Let's try another question from the audience here.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Howard Berry. I'm the father of the late Staff Sergeant Joshua Berry. My son was involved in the Fort Hood shooting. He was also treated at the Cincinnati VA, and he became one of the 22 a day in February of 2013. And the reason that I'm here tonight is that when Secretary McDonald assumed leadership of the VA, one of the first things that he did, and I've handed a lot of these out tonight, Mr. McDonald announced that there were going to be town hall meetings, and that gave veterans an opportunity to have a voice, which I don't know that they actually had publicly before, have a chance to speak out in an open forum with the VA president and the press and taxpayers that wanted to show up. And I thought, what an innovative decision. You actually, the opportunities for solution and opportunities for finding common ground in areas that need to be looked at. And the Cincinnati VA started out with town hall meetings. And I don't understand, because since as last December and then the recent one that they had in March, they've morphed this into they call it a listening session, but honestly, sir, it's a not listening session. And what they've done, they've taken tables and put them around the perimeter of a room, and they have staffers. You can't ask questions publicly. You know, you can't. You don't. And my question is, why? Because they've deviated from this. There were 150 plus vets that were coming to the town hall meetings when they had them, and I have asked them simply to announce the meetings for 4 meetings for a year, date, time, and location, have them when Congress is not in session, so our elected officials have an opportunity to attend and see what their constituents are facing, and include everybody. And this isn't happening, and I don't understand, because I spoke to you earlier, and they're still having town hall format meetings in other parts, in other states, Illinois, Michigan, and I think vets are being left behind. We went from 150 people at the last one to 15. That's a 90% reduction in attendance. And once again, vets lose, and they lose, and the taxpayers, there's no transparency, there's no accountability, and I believe that these men and women deserve better. Like the doctor said when we started, what's it say at the front of the building, right there? Yeah, you got to take care of.
Served us, let us serve you.
And that's it. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right. Why? The VA used to do these town hall sessions. Why aren't there?
Yeah, you know, you talked about things that I've done in my relatively short period of time. Part of the reason I'm here, I'm really a strong believer in listening to the voice of veterans, and that's how you learn what you're doing well, how you learn where you have opportunities to improve. Dayton has adopted this. We've talked about it in Cincinnati, but we started doing telephone town halls in some of the congressional offices here. We have the ability to call 10, 20, 30,000 veterans and to have a conversation, facilitated conversation. We've done 2 since I was the director in Ann Arbor. We talked to 4,000 and 5,000 veterans at a time. We did one just a couple of weeks ago in Dayton. I think they had over 3,000 veterans participate, and we're in the planning stages to do that in Cincinnati. I think face-to-face meetings like we're having tonight are very important, and that's why I'm here. I think we need to do more of that. There are also resource fairs, which I think is what you're talking about, sir, where there would be a table to talk about some benefit or something of that nature, but that's different than a town hall meeting. A town hall meeting is the kind of dialogue we're having tonight, and I am strongly supportive of that, and will do what I can as the acting vision director to encourage that. So thank you for your comment.
A picture of it on my phone. It's like 30 seconds long, and it's out of the 15 people that were actually there, at least 3 or 4 of them were either aides or staffers, you know what I mean, that were there representing other people. And like 15, 20 minutes into it, like I ended up staying there for an hour, and like, you know, me and Mr. Barry were actually talking in the parking lot, watching, you know, nobody go in, and they had a huge, you know, place, and then just a little tiny room, and it was just the little things, and then it was a town hall, and then you just went and you know, talked to the people, but it was actually advertised as a town hall. So it wasn't it was the town hall / listening session, and they said that it was what veterans wanted, even though I never even knew that they had, you know, anything like that. But that wasn't my question. I was just commenting on that.
What's your name, sir?
Sean Edmondson. Actually, about 3 years ago, I guess it's a 2-part question, because I've tried to take it up to the director of the Cincinnati VA, the last 2 actually. I went up there to get a copy of my medical records, and then, you know, all they want to do is just mental health stuff, just to, you know, get through this real quick. I had security called on me because of, what was his name? Dr. Peter Egan. You know, just, it was on a scale of 1 to 10, have you ever had any homicidal, suicidal thoughts, feelings, or behaviors? I said, I'm not answering that. Well, you have to. Well, I'm here to get my medical records, yada, yada, yada. You know, plead the fifth. Well, then he called the security. My mom and my daughter, who was 9 years old at the time, we were surrounded by security trying to leave. And then while trying to get in the car, the guy kept, you know, pushing the door shut, trying to prevent me from getting in the car, and then actually pulled his firearm out and, you know, placed it right here at my ribs and said, "Sir, stop acting stupid. Is this how you want to end in front of your kid?" Like, this is something he actually said to me. Now, I called 509-8454. That's Bob McDonald. This is before Bob McDonald took over. I've left several messages, but I call about 15, 20 times a day, actually 22 times a day, you know, just for that magic number 22. And I've been leaving messages since he's been in office. You know what I mean? I've reached out to everyone. I can't get anybody to actually, you know, even address, you know, what happened. I went to try to get copy, like I actually had to call District 4 Cincinnati Police to come down there, and then their argument was, well, he has PTSD. The two police officers that showed up when I called 911 looked at him and laughed, and they're like, "We have PTSD. Rape victims have PTSD. You know what I mean? Firefighters have PTSD. Medics have PTSD. It's, you know, it's not like PTSD is just solely on veterans. You know what I mean? Any traumatic event can give you PTSD. I mean, it's, what gives a doctor the right to, one doctor, on his opinion, to have me locked up in, you know, the 7th floor, because that was what he wanted to do. He said, "I can't in good conscience let you leave because you said you were suicidal." I was like, "No, I didn't. Like, I wasn't here to play, you know, answer the 20 questions on a scale of 1 to 10, or how am I feeling today, what's my favorite color." And then, you know, here's another one. Why does the VA want to know my serial numbers for how many weapons I have? Like, that's kind of a little odd one. You know what I mean? But, like, accountability-wise, it doesn't seem like there's accountability in management. You know what I mean? Like, from my personal experience, like, the people, like the nurses, you know, the doctors, you know, majority of them, they're really, really good. I mean, they really care about what they do. You know what I mean? They do above and beyond. But a lot of them, you know, their hands are tied because they can't do anything. You know what I mean? But if you can't fire anybody for doing anything wrong, you know what I mean? That's like a police officer, you know, going up to a crime, right? And then he goes up to him and he's like, "Well, there's nothing I can do because I can't arrest you." I mean, like, how effective is that police officer going to be if he can't actually arrest anybody? I mean, there's no incentive for anybody to actually do anything right. You know what I mean? And then the 300, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's
But
okay.
is there a question that you think the panel can address for you?
I was going to say, I just lost it. The doctors, like the actual surgeons, because you said something about the orthopedic and neurology. I've been waiting 3 years to see, you know, an orthopedic or a neurologist for my back and for my knee. And then someone said the comment about that, you know, they only make like $300,000 a year. Another one, I think that's a big problem, is there's actually no full-time surgeons. And if there is, you know, I mean, correct me, but they only work like, I think it was like Wednesdays and Fridays. Like, if you need to see a specialist, they work part-time at other hospitals. Now,
So
if
you're
the
looking
same
for-
doctor...
You're looking for...
Well, the choice, this goes in with the choice card too, right? Like, just, if, like, say he was my doctor, right, or my specialist, and, you know, he works there Wednesdays and Fridays, right, and they have a backlog. They have too many people all trying to see the same guy, right? And he's only there 2 days, so, you know, you can't, you know, fit that many people into like a 9-hour workday, right? Now, if he works at the VA part-time and works at Christ Hospital, how come you can't go to Christ Hospital, or how come you can't go nowhere else?
So it sounds like there's a lot of issues that are going on there that some have already been talked about here. PTSD sensibilities. Is question just on that, and then we'll go to the back of the room. But is there more? What do you know about what is happening inside of Cincinnati related to if someone has PTSD, and how are they treated? And is this the norm, either in Michigan where you've been in the past, or what could happen going forward to allow for more sensitivity towards a population that clearly needs it?
Again, sir, I apologize for the confusion that you had. And in terms of individual follow-up, we can talk about that afterwards. I would say in terms of PTSD and mental health care, that's obviously a high priority in the VA system. It's part of our focus of clinical care, part of our focus in research. We have people that are really trying to advance medical science for the benefit of veterans in areas like that. But it all comes down to individual customer service and having engaged employees who reach out and are supportive. Our mission as a healthcare system reads quite simply, honor America's veterans by providing exceptional health care which improves their health and well-being. And at least in my role here in the vision and my role as a medical center director, I treat this as a journey of honor, and that's what we ask all our employees to do. So if you didn't feel respected in that situation, that shouldn't happen, but I'm happy to talk to you offline about that.
I want to go to the back of the room. We have a question back there. Social media question.
Yeah, we have a question from Buddy, who says he's a Marine veteran and also an economist. And he has a question for any of the whistleblowers. He says, explain to me why some procedures shouldn't be outsourced to other hospitals. It seems like it would be foolish to expect the VA to have state-of-the-art facilities and full staffing for every specialty if there is no economy of scale. No other hospitals do that. Why would we expect it of the VA? Are you suggesting that care received outside of the VA, such as at UC, is inadequate compared to the VA?
Any one of you?
I think that strong collaborative relationships with the university hospital are essential. In neurosurgery, there are advancements that the VA can't possibly afford and wouldn't be economically sound because the small number of patients that they would benefit wouldn't make sense. That's why building strong collaborative relationships with the university hospitals and the affiliates are important. I think that that's one of the areas that the choice care dollars should be looked at.
I'd like to answer to that. Up until 2013, the orthopedic service took care of every patient who arrived. We were fully staffed with highly skilled people. In 2013, the 3 senior people were all called in and made part-time. They took the directorship away from me for no obvious reason. Our service was destroyed, and the reason, I have no idea. I suspect it was to save money and send the patients out into the community to be cared for, which comes from different funds.
So if you were, we asked Mike Brooks this, Dr. Freiberg, but if you were to have one question for the acting network director, one thing that you would like to see changed, what would you ask him? Here's your opportunity.
Well, I would like to ask, is it the plan of the Veterans Administration to care for their patients in the veterans hospitals or outside the veterans hospitals?
I think our plan is to provide the best care to a population of veterans in a large geographic area with access challenges, with the need to make sure that we have a high-quality array of services. I think, Dr. Freiberg, we've been in partnership with the university affiliates forever, since 1948. That's been an important part of VA that will continue. As I said earlier, I think our partnership with community partners will continue and continue to grow. I think there are things that the VA does extremely well, in fact, probably better than anybody else. I'm a believer in veterans health care. I believe that veterans have unique health needs that are addressed by the expertise of our providers. On the other hand, I think there are opportunities for us to work together with university partners. I know in Cincinnati, in my short time here, the VA does transaortic valve replacements, but it's in partnership with the university. The VA has a wonderful hybrid OR where the procedure is done, but it's supported by university staff. In that case, there may not be a large enough volume for VA to support a program on their own, and that's where working together we make the world a better place for veterans, and I think that has been the history of the VA, but I think in the future it will be a stronger part of who we are and what we do.
I'd like to respond, and this is not your problem, as it happened before you came. The University Orthopedic Department offered to take care of all our total joints that we couldn't service here. They were turned down cold.
Turned down by who, Dr. Freiberg, do you know?
By the Veterans Administration, by our bureaucrats.
Okay.
They would not accept that role.
So is there a transition plan? Do you have a transition team put together to find a new chief of staff? Or is the acting chief of staff, the last one was in place for 2.5 years with an acting title. Is the current acting chief of staff going to remain sort of for that amount of time, or is there a more active plan?
There's been a community-wide search committee for the chief of staff. They've identified candidates and are working through the finals of the evaluation and selection process. And as I understand it, there were good candidates in the pool, and they are very optimistic they'll be able to move forward quickly in that. And again, it's been a partnering search. When I met with the dean of the medical school, he was part of the search committee, which I think is a very positive sign, and talked about some of the candidates he had the chance to interact with.
What's the time frame on that? When will there be a new?
When we're bringing on senior leaders, there's a significant vetting process, especially when it's a clinician. That process is playing out, and I think talking to Cincinnati leadership, they're optimistic that will come together really this spring. So.
I'm sorry, not to put you on the hot seat any more than you are, but it's always been my experience we're going to hire a new chief of service, we're going to hire a new anesthesiologist, if you will. There was an interview process, and the department was involved with that. And is this person going to be a good fit? Is this person, do they actually have skills they're bringing in? Any of these people that come in, first, have we considered anybody that's already there at our VA who actually knows the system and all, that have been there for years and knows where the problems are? Have we considered any of those very capable candidates that we already have there? And do they have, and I'm a worker bee, I'm at the bedside, but have the department heads and some of the senior physicians there, have they been involved in some of the vetting process, or is this all coming from your office?
No, I can tell you none of it's coming from my office, Mike, but I don't know who's exactly on the search committee other than the dean and representatives of the facility. I know when we search for senior leaders, we do an open competitive process, and I believe, as you would imagine, with a senior clinical leader, this was a nationwide search.
Let me move back to the audience. We have a question right here.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Laura Ann Weaver. First of all, I want to thank the VA hospital for its recognition and increased attention to the medical needs of women who served in the military. My question concerns what was said very early on about dirty instruments, which sounds very nice in quotation marks, but I want to get to the meat of the matter. I served on the infection control committee of another hospital, and we have a mechanism by which we quantify nosomial infections and postoperative infections, that is in-hospital and out-hospital, to determine quantitatively whether or not there is any problem with infection control. Has there been an increase in infections in the VA hospital, and is this service looked at seriously? I'll address it to the physician who, as the head of the department, would be getting reports from the infection control nurse and to the nurse. Thank you. And if I hold my hands up any higher, any longer, I would need an orthopedic surgeon.
Thank you for your patience. Dr. Freiberg.
Well, I quit operating when I passed 80, as I felt it was time to do so. So I have no presence in the operating room anymore. I did get involved in a problem 11 years ago with infections. I led the process of investigating them. There was an outside consultant came in, and we dealt with that. I see no effort such as that going on at this time.
Mike Brooks, you were the one who really spoke out publicly, at least. We heard from a lot of people about this issue. You're the one who sort of spoke out publicly about dirty surgical instruments. What have you seen going on? And I have another question. Has the VA in its investigation, you and I were speaking prior to this, have they actually talked to you yet, any investigator, about what it is that you've spoken out publicly about?
No, no one's come to speak to me. I'm kind of an impartial guy. I stand at the head of the bed taking care of the patient, and I see when the surgeon stops and says, wait a minute, or the surgical tech typically says, wait a minute, there's something on this instrument that should not be there. Which tells me that the instrument wasn't cleaned properly, and they're typically sent back down. That instrumentation is taken off of the table, and they bring new, clean things in. So I'm not sure where we fall down in the cleaning of instruments. I can answer that there was a in the last few years, apparently there was a statistical increase in infections at the hospital, but I cannot infer that those were related to any particular surgical case or whatever. They are tracking those. We have layers and layers of nurses and infection control people that are paying very close attention to that. However, those are very qualified people doing that job. Unfortunately, as Bob mentioned, and as our other friend mentioned here, we have such a lack of staff and such poor salaries that we're paying people. The people we're hiring to do those jobs are not necessarily certified to do that through Cincinnati State or whatever. So they're doing the very best they can. I don't think they're taught appropriately, and there's more training needed. So not every issue is money, but I think that hiring better trained people would help fix these issues.
But this gets to an interesting point. I mean, you mentioned at the top there that and this was something that you and I chatted about before this began, but it really struck me that here you are the sort of guy raising the red flag on this issue on behalf of others.
Right.
And you know, it is true. On February 25th, the VA out of D.C. put out a press release talking about some preliminary results from its internal investigation.
Certainly.
That was happening out of something called the Office of Medical Inspectors. So these are the guys that are supposed to know how to do a medical investigation, a true investigation. And in their press release, they said that they preliminarily could not substantiate any problems with quality of care. And that was, what you're saying is that was before they even talked to the main guy who was raising the issues?
Well, and I need to give credit where credit is due. There's a certain culture at the Cincinnati VA right now, and I really didn't want to go down this road of demonizing that culture there, but there's a culture that if you point something out, you become the problem. And that's not the way I was raised. That's not what I'm going to stand for. Mr. McDevitt has said many, many times that we're going to go forward in building a culture of trust so that anybody can, on the train, reach up and pull the stop button and say, that's not right, we need to get it right. Up until this point, and still today, there are some leaders there that absolutely deny all the complaints that we have made, that this never happened, it's just a bunch of belly aching. Those are quotes, and we're going to move forward. I'm just the guy standing in the room watching what goes on. The chief of sports medicine, Keith Kenter from the UC, he canceled his whole surgery one day because he found instruments that were contaminated. So he did the best for the patient and sent them away and rescheduled them. Several other orthopedic surgeons had the same issues. Dr. Andalus, our prior neurosurgeon, had that issue, and he raised all kinds of cane. He's a very polite guy, but you could get under his skin. He raised issues with that. The people who came to inspect, when they went to the administration that's there now, they went in and apparently all the data that would substantiate my reports. The OR nurses came to me, being the shop steward. They said, I've gone to my supervisor and reported this. I've filled out the paperwork, and a couple of them were called in the office and said, you cannot say that that's actually a dirty instrument. Change this report.
So these are serious. These are serious charges.
Well,
and I think it would be, I think it's worth asking if we started out talking about transparency and the important about moving forward.
Right.
And if tonight is about trying to move forward.
Okay.
And I think that's what we've tried to set this tone to try to find solutions going forward.
Right.
And we've got the captain of the ship to take this community forward. And so maybe for you, sir, what faith should the public have? How can the public be assured if sort of, the lead public guy raising these issues is coming forward, and if he hasn't been interviewed by investigators, but the VA puts out a press release saying, so far we can't find anything to substantiate this, how can the public be assured that the investigation, the internal investigation the VA is actually doing, is going to be worth the paper that it's going to be printed on whenever it does come out?
How can us disabled vets trust the VA? How can 100%? 3 years ago, I suffered neurology. I was airborne special forces, 8 years operational, right? And I went from 60% to 100% in the last 3 years and haven't been able to walk. Okay? How can I trust you? Because I don't trust you, Dr. Freiberg. I trust you. You've treated me well.
So again,
that's my primary care. They treated me well.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. So it's about trust. You're the new guy. Important to put that out there, but clearly there's some emotion in the room.
Sure.
And there may be some reason to have some of that emotion. What is it that you can do to go forward to try to restore that trust?
Sure. I think the discussion we're having tonight is part of that. And we're out here to listen and to move forward. As I said, we take all the allegations seriously. There have been at least 3 reviews looking at sterile processing. They have preliminary conclusions, some of which were published, but the final reports have not come out. We have an absolute duty and obligation every single day to assure to each veteran that receives care anywhere in our healthcare system, not just in Cincinnati, that care is safe and of high quality. And as Mike said, it is part of our process to do a lot of quality assurance things, and it's part of our process to empower our employees to say if they see something that's not right, whether it be a speck of something on a surgical instrument or a process that they don't agree with, to bring that up, and we will pull the cord, and if we have to, we'll do the kinds of hard things that Mike talked about in terms of canceling a procedure and rescheduling rather than put a veteran even at the slightest risk in a situation like that.
Okay, we are close to running out of time, and we have a lot of people who haven't been able to ask questions yet. So what I'm going to ask is that folks ask questions, get to the question as quickly as possible for the time we have remaining. So let's go back here to the back of the room here.
My name is Harry Reardon. I have a couple concerns. I'm sitting here behind the acting medical director, from what I have been able to assume. And my main concern is we're talking about everything except taking care of the veteran. We're talking about this guy's job, that guy's job. There's an 80-year-old physician up there. It's time that he's retired, okay? Let's take care of the problem of the vets. Let's not sit up here and talk what's going to happen. Let's see it happening. And here's a man here that my understanding is he is the acting medical director. If I'm not wrong, well, anyway, he's a physician at the facility, okay? Why don't we let these people tell us what they can do for us? Not having a discussion. What it amounts to is you're pointing fingers at this person and that person. The guy's been on the job for 30 days. How can he tell you exactly what's going to happen? It all takes time. He has to answer the other people. And then we'll go back to the town hall meetings. They need to be held back at the VA hospital. They have a big auditorium there. The staff should be there. So if we have a question, we can ask that particular staff member that question, not like it was when they first started doing it, when the chief of staff was sleeping during the town hall meeting. Now,
Right. Are we going to get back to town hall meetings?
That's what we
a
need to
recurring
do.
theme here.
Yeah, absolutely. As we
Right,
talked
thank you.
about, Secretary McDonald is a strong proponent. As I said, there are a lot of ways to do town hall meetings. Face-to-face is a very important one. We're also into social media. We can do Facebook town hall meetings. We can do the telephone town hall meetings. But I will, as I said, one of the things I have brought here in my short period of time is a number of ways of getting out and listening to the voice of veterans, including what we're doing right now.
Let's come to the front of the room here.
We've got just the gentleman in the middle here.
My name is Scott Landrum. I'm a surgical technologist at the VA Medical Center, and up until last week, I was the orthopedic coordinator for surgery. I just now understand that the investigation showed that there was no bone or that nothing was wrong with the instruments. I'm the person who found the instruments and what was wrong with it. How in the world can they say that? I'm the one who filled out the report. Where did those reports go? I'm the person who did it. I'm the person who found the bone on the instruments, and it happened dozens of times. And I've had to break down an entire room before with a patient on a table and have to reset up everything. Thank goodness we have a good team in the operating room to recognize those things and be able to correct them. But how in the world can someone say that it didn't happen? I did it.
So
I've been really standing back, not saying anything because I'm afraid for my job. And you know what? This is ridiculous. An entire medical crew wants to come in and challenge what I say. I've been doing this for a quarter of a century. The only person who's seen more bone than me at the hospital is Dr. Freiberg. And where are my reports? Where's all the stuff from CensorTrack? Where are all the reports that were filed that were supposed to go to the VISM? Where are they?
One person's sworn testimony or one person's actual sworn statement can get you, in life in prison for murder. Then how come his statement isn't actually holding any water? He was the actual guy that was there.
So a lot of emotion here.
And I'm sorry for being upset.
A lot of emotion about the integrity of what has been put out there about there being no problems. You're saying from the inside that you believe that there are issues.
I don't believe. I noticed the issues. I'm the one who filled out the reports. So where are those reports?
Where are the reports going? Is there a commitment in the? You say that the investigation, sir, maybe to wrap this up tonight. There's a lot to talk about here going forward, clearly, right. But at least to sort of try to put a ribbon on where we are tonight and what we will do going forward. Maybe we'll just give you the last opportunity to comment, Rob, and just tell us where do you want to take that comment and everything else that you've heard as the leader who has an opportunity to try to heal this community. What do you want to do?
Again, I appreciate all the comments. I would say that all of these are preliminary reviews. The final reports are not in. All of this is part of a process of assuring that we have the highest quality, safest care for veterans. And we are an open, transparent agency, and we'll continue to do those reviews as we move forward. Again, we were here tonight to listen to you and hear your concerns. I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards about the individual aspects of that. I have not personally been involved with the teams as they've left, but I've read the reviews at the vision level, and we will take what you provided us tonight and move forward.
I'm being told we do have time for another question.
Okay, my name is Richard Tinsley. I served in Vietnam, 68 and 69. I had a friend whose brother was over there at the same time I was. And she asked me one day, she said, Mr. Tinsley, have you been checked out for Agent Orange? I said, no. She said, well, I want you to go get checked out. She said, my brother died from Agent Orange. Said he was over there at the same time you was. So on April the 3rd, 2014, I went to the VA hospital. They drawed 2 vials of blood and asked me a whole bunch of questions. On the 24th of April of 2014, I get a bill in the mail for $15 copay. I said, what? This was service related. Are you people, forgetting, I'm a veteran? So I called over there and talked to this guy, and he started apologizing and everything. And about a half hour later, some lady named Mary Porter called me from St. Louis, Missouri, and she started apologizing. Well, you know, this has been since 4/3/2014, and to this day I have not heard the results of my Agent Orange test. Can anybody answer this question for me, please?
I don't know that we can answer that question.
Huh?
I don't know that we can answer that question, other than if they did the test, I'm sure the results are written in your record somewhere. I don't know that they're going to mail them to you or whatever, but when
The
you...
man told me he was going to.
Oh, okay, well, I can't answer for him, but I'm sure, actually, when we pull up your chart, there's a little block down there, Agent Orange is checked or not checked. So your primary care person, whoever that person is, should be able to tell you what the results were and where you stand. Now, I'm only supposing, and I feel where you're at.
I understand.
Okay.
March of 2011, I was diagnosed with cancer. The VA couldn't help me no kind of way with my cancer problems. I had to use my personal insurance and pay my co-pays out of my pocket myself.
Okay.
So here I am.
I think you certainly should be able to talk to one of Miss.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service. And one note: you may want to reach out to your local congressman if you're having a hard time getting. If you I would recommend you reach out to your local congressman. They have staff that can help you negotiate with the federal agency and try to get your records. Can we have time? We have time. I think for 2 more questions. Let's see. Right here, sir. Or ma'am, whoever, yes, go ahead. You got it.
Hello, thank you. My name is Sylvia Cita Wooster, and I come from a family of veterans. And my husband was Vietnam, my son was Iraq, he got a Purple Heart, and my father was in the Navy, and he's 92 years old. My question is, why is it so difficult for my father to get service connected? He's got illnesses related to the service. Being in the Navy, he had to deal with asbestos and the lead paint. Why is it so difficult for him? At 92 years old, I've been filing claims for a year, getting denials, appealing the denials. I have a letter from his primary care doctor of 25 years from the VA stating the fact that his illnesses are asbestos related. And I don't know what's going to happen. My dad's 92. He's failing, his health is failing quickly.
He's in hospice right now.
Yes, he's in hospice. Yes.
Any advice for?
Yeah, I obviously can't speak
He
on
has gotten eviction notices.
on the
He
individual
got 2
aspects of your
eviction
claim. I
notices.
can tell you that we do work in partnership with the Veterans Benefits Administration, who adjudicate claims for service connection. If you want to talk to the Cincinnati representative afterwards and give us the information, we will coordinate with VBA so they can get back with you and talk about your dad's claim.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have another question, and we'll call it our final one here, but I do have some advice after this question, so don't go anywhere just yet. This gentleman right here.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I got a question. All of us veterans in this room go to VA. Why does the VA treat us like guinea pigs? They always say, well, we're experimenting. That's called guinea pigs.
Is there anything specific to that?
Yes. I got several of them. I don't want to go and take it all the time up. But it happens. I've had nurses in urology and dermatology were experimenting on you.
Okay.
Is there a patient advocacy? What advice do you have for a veteran who's unsatisfied with
All
their
our
care?
medical centers have patient advocates, including the Cincinnati VA, and they're there, as the name would indicate, to advocate for veterans. So if you have issues or concerns, they're the frontline ombudsman to respond to concerns.
So there's okay. All right. So So off mic there, there was just a final question, and we will make that the final one here. Is there? It's again about trust in the patient advocacy program. Is it set up in an independent way to trust?
The patient advocates are VA employees, but I think all of us consider ourselves to be patient advocates. And you mentioned service organizations, congressional offices, the media. These are all places where issues of concern can be expressed, and they need to come back to us. But we do have employed patient advocates, and that's their job, is to advocate on behalf of veterans. From my personal experience in the VA, they really do work on behalf of veterans.
So to wrap things up, I want to go ahead and thank everyone here, to go ahead and thank again Dr. Friedberg, Mike Brooks, Sue Ware, Mr. McDivitt. You certainly have your hands 1 month in. You appear to have a heck of a job ahead of you. We look forward to continuing to communicate with you and everyone here. On behalf of all of us at WCPO and at Scripps, I want to also again thank Sergeant Ralph Walters and this VFW Post for providing this forum. But I want to give, for all of those who did not have an opportunity to get your questions answered, again, a reminder: there are people at the back of the room who are representatives of veteran service organizations and the VA. But if you want to stay in touch with us at WCPO or at Scripps, you want to be looped in on where this story goes from here, we've actually set up a website for you to do that. And so if you go to WCPO.com/VA help, WCPO.com/VA help, for anyone who didn't get a chance to ask your question, you can go there and ask it, and we will do our best to keep you in the loop and to get some answers for you. We're going to stay on top of this story. On behalf of Dan Monk, myself, and everyone here, Jeff Brogan and Ellen Weiss, representing some of our management, we're just so thrilled that you would take some time out of your evenings to invest in the future of this very important issue, and we look forward to continuing to dialogue with you. So thanks for coming out.